The DJI Mini 5 Pro released a couple of months ago, and after all this hype of its 1-inch 50-megapixel sensor, is this just a little improvement or a big upgrade? It's been a while since the release of the DJI Mini 5 Pro, and I wanted to see how good it actually is. After all its hype, many updates, how good is it in real-world scenario? I personally fly with the DJI Mavic 3 Pro, and if I need a lighter setup, I use the Mini 3 Pro. I wanted to see how good of a step up it is to the DJI Mini 5 Pro. Really quickly, I wanted to thank Megadrone here in Poland for lending out this drone for me to test out and see how I like it. Without them, this video would not be possible. So if you're in Europe or in Poland looking for drones and accessories, check out Megadrone. So coming from the Mini 3 Pro, it is a pretty similar story. The same kind of a lightweight setup that you can take with you pretty much anywhere and fly in a couple of seconds. It is super easy to start with these kind of drones. They're just super quick and easy to set up and start flying. And because they're so lightweight, not only they're much better for regulations and being able to fly in more places than with a bigger drone, but also they're super quiet, just much, easier on the eyes. It doesn't bring as much attention and just feels much nicer to fly because it's just a tiny little drone that also packs a big punch in terms of imaging quality. But what I was mostly curious of is the new 1-inch sensor. You see, coming from the Mini 3 Pro, this is a pretty big step up. And if you're like me and you also are interested in smartphone photography, you'll notice that some brands, like Xiaomi for example, have been pushing their main camera sensors to be 1-inch because they provide just much more capabilities, they work better in low light, just overall the sharpness, quality, dynamic range can all be upgraded thanks to this 1-inch sensor. So it's definitely a big upgrade in terms of how big the sensor is. But that is cool on paper, but how does it perform? Let's be honest, this is a big sensor for a mini drone, at the same time, how much of a difference there actually is. But before we go to that, I just wanted to say a couple of things that are just overall about this drone. It has obstacle avoidance 360 degrees, so it's pretty nice, safe. It also has LiDAR scanner, so it's extra level of security, or if it has to return to home, it's going to be just much better because it can actually sense not only optically, but also with the LiDAR sensors. So overall, it's super safe in that regard, and when you're flying with it, it has just more obstacle avoidance, so that is a nice improvement. It's still under the 250 gram mark, so it's pretty nice. Thanks to this, you have really nice, good quality drone that still goes into that, lower bracket. Even on the drone on the bottom, it has the qualifications for the C0 category and everything, so it just makes it so much easier to use in real world scenarios. And you can actually use the batteries from the Mini 3 Pro and 4 Pro, but if you put them, not only they're different color, they fit and work nicely, but the drone becomes heavier than 250 grams. And you even get that on the screen, so just make sure you know that before flying. Like I said, the Mini series is just incredible for being like that really fast run and gun style of shooting where you just take out a drone really quickly, unfold it, start flying in seconds, and it's just that simple. And they're just the best for those scenarios when you're in a city or just want, something that is lighter for travel, but still having amazing image quality. And that brings us to the imaging and the camera performance of it. Let's start with the photo side of it. It is a 1-inch sensor that can shoot in 12 megapixels and 50 megapixels. Although mostly I would shoot in 12 megapixels because this is gonna work like a quad Bayer sensor, meaning that it's gonna just provide more light into each pixel, while the quality, in my opinion usually, that in 12 megapixel is gonna be looking already really good. And for most case scenarios, especially if you're using it for social media, this is more than enough. But I'm gonna be honest, the first impression I had of this drone when taking the photos is I was super surprised. Especially when I looked at them on bigger screen on my computer or I put them in the Lightroom, I was seriously surprised how nice they look. They're really sharp and they look good. But the most important part for me was the dynamic range. It seems like the dynamic range is much higher than what I'm used to with the Mini 3 Pro, and that is a given with a much bigger sensor and the newer software that it has. I have to say that I was surprised how nicely it performed in the sunset location, for example, or in midday with harsh lighting, because normally there would be points where something would be too dark or a little bit overblown. Where with this, the dynamic range is definitely there, like it is that good. So if you're looking for something that has that nice dynamic range that will not clip on both sides, and this was performing super nice. So I was really surprised how good it looked, especially like I said, when I put them on my computer and saw it on a bigger screen, and especially when I put the RAWs into Lightroom, they were looking really good. And that brings me to the point that this can shoot in JPEG and RAW. Thanks to this, if you want a quick, easy to just use photo, you can shoot in JPEGs or in RAWs. Better yet, you can actually shoot in JPEGs and RAWs at the same time, and that is what I usually do. Just makes it a little bit better for workflows or if you need to put that photo somewhere else. But with the RAWs, you can just do much more in post-production and edit those photos to your liking. If you like the way I edit the RAW photos from the DJI Mini 5 Pro, check out the link down below to my Lightroom preset packs, with which you can edit with one click. With that being said, the RAWs just give you much more flexibility in post-production, but also push this camera to the maximum. Like, you can get the most out of it, and the dynamic range in the RAWs is incredible. Like I said, I was seriously surprised when I saw that it was not clipping in any directions, even in really harsh situations. And it didn't push those orange colors that I always hate with the sunset photos or videos with the mini style of the drones, that if it's really bright and it's a sunset and then it's like on a rock that is usually like a little bit more like a marble white kind of color, it tends to go into that really overblown orange, and this didn't do that, which I was really happy with. Another thing is, because this is a 1-inch sensor and it has a little bit more megapixels, you can actually use the ×2 digital zoom that is done inside of the software, inside of the camera. Thanks to this, it is gonna look really nice, and I was able to use it for both photos and videos really nicely. That 2x digital zoom is really good on the Mini 5 Pro, and it actually feels like you had a second lens. Yes, it's not gonna perform as good as just having the 1x zoom, you know, the full sensor, but if you want that 2x zoom, which I always love, the telephoto look on photos and videos, then it can actually provide. But it is gonna take a hit on the quality a little bit, but nonetheless, it looks really good. And like with the previous mini series, you can actually change the orientation of the camera for horizontal and vertical shooting. Thanks to this, you no longer have to crop into the video or photo. You can just change the orientation of the camera, and now you can have a true vertical style of shooting for photos and videos. This is a great feature, and I feel like this really makes the Mini 5 Pro the drone to get for content creators. Thanks to this, you have a lightweight camera that is always with you, really easy to handle with you. Sub 250 grams just means better for different laws, regulations, and just even having in your backpack. At the same time, the true vertical style of shooting makes it perfect for travel vloggers or travel content creators, Instagram kind of users. Like, that just opens up that much more possibility if you want to do that vertical shooting for photos and videos and not have to crop in, and just it overall is a better workflow if you know you're gonna shoot that certain place in vertical. But what about the video side of the DJI Mini 5 Pro? Especially coming from something like the DJI Mini 3 Pro, there's a lot of nice improvements. So while this drone can shoot in 4K 60 frames per second in HDR or 4K 120 frames per second, I personally mostly shoot in 4K 60 frames per second because I like that 4K high resolution video, but I also like the smoothness of 60 frames per second and the ability to slow it down in post-production if I wanted to. It is my personal preference. I always preferred 60 frames per second on a drone footage instead of 30 frames per second. I even made a lot of aerial videos from certain locations in 4K 60 frames per second. I just feel like it looks that much nicer and that much smoother, just something that just to me looks better. I know it's not the most cinematic for many, but I feel like it looks better, just makes it more, you know, nice. I can always put it into a 30 frames per second timeline and work with that nicely too. But that is the way I shoot most of my content, and in 4K 60 frames per second, it looks incredible. Because let's be honest, even on DJI Mini 3 Pro, I can shoot in 4K 60 frames per second, but the bigger 1-inch sensor and the much improved dynamic range, that is the one thing that was really something that I've seen in all the footage that I got in with it. The dynamic range is just that much better, making it look much more professional. If there is nothing that is blown out in the highlights or too dark in the shadows, it just makes it feel like a much more professional camera. That dynamic range really makes that much of a difference. Is it the difference because of the 1-inch sensor? I'm not sure if it's the just sensor being better, the algorithm algorithms, the software, whatever it is, the dynamic range is much better, and that makes it look so good. Not only that, you can actually shoot in D-Log-M. This is much more of a flat picture profile. It is kind of like a RAW for photos. Thanks to this, you can push it much more in post-production, thanks to this being a much more flat picture profile, getting the most out of the cameras, and thanks to it being a 10-bit footage, you can actually push it even more in post-production. If you like the way I edit the D-Log-M footage, check out the link down below for my LUTs for DaVinci Resolve. They're made specifically for the D-Log-M format. This is another nice step in the right direction. More possibilities in post-production. You can shoot in normal, HLG, or D-Log-M depending on your setup, workflow, and cameras you're gonna use. For many, normal is gonna be more than enough. Normal looks pretty nice already. But if you want to push that camera to the next level, or if you have different cameras that you want to match to, you can use the HLG or the D-Log-M. I personally love to record with the D-Log-M. It's just much more easier to use while pushing the cameras to the maximum and giving me much more flexibility in post-production to edit the way I want them. So it's a nice combination of high dynamic range, big nice sensor, and the flat picture profile just giving us more in terms of possibilities. And another thing that I really liked about it is the 4K 60 frames per second active track. Thanks to this, you can make really good looking shots much easier. People think of the active track for subject, for like a person walking, for example. But because you can do like a building, a place, or like a boat, thanks to this you can lock onto a subject and make those really nice cinematic shots. Much easier than if you would have to do it by hand. I personally usually shoot with no active track. I am kind of a person that really wants to have that, skill in operation. I want to do it the way I want to do it, and I really try to make it my own. But this makes it much more accessible, much easier to do those nice cinematic, smooth movement kind of shots really easy with it. Because now you can just, select a building, and then when you fly with it, you don't have to focus on 3 different things at the same time. You can focus on 2 or 1 thing, and it's gonna be much easier because no longer you have to really focus where the camera is pointing at. Now the camera is gonna be pointed at the right direction. You just move the drone, which makes it just much better for those that want to have those nice visuals, but maybe don't have that skill just yet, or maybe just for ease of use, because this makes it that much easier and more accessible to make those nice cinematic shots. And once again, the 2x zoom that is in here is really nice. It gives you that extra kind of a lens. I always love the telephoto lenses for drones, and while this is only a single camera drone, that 2x zoom actually brings in that feeling of having that extra telephoto lens. So yes, it is going to be a digital crop, but because it is more than capable, it can shoot in 4K 60 frames per second in that zoom, and it's going to look really good. But in lower light situation, that zoom is going to not look as good as the full camera, but it's still great. And like I said before, the true vertical, with being able to change the way the camera is looking, if it's vertical or horizontal, it just makes it amazing for content creators, for example on social media like Instagram. This is, in my opinion, still the best series to have if you're looking for professional level of quality, but at the same time being that portable, lightweight, and kind of like a social media content creator style. I'll be honest, that quality looks insane, and it's incredible how small drone like this can get that quality. It is that good. And there's also different features like the quick shots and master shots, which are really nice. For example, a moving time lapse, which is a hyperlapse, just looks so nice from it, and you can just have it ready without really touching anything. It brings so much quality and creativity to your setup that I have to say that the Mini is still one of my favorite lines of drones out there. And one extra feature of this drone, there's actually a button on the side to really quickly connect it to a smartphone and send that footage over to it. Like an extra way to send it from the drone to the phone, just for easier, quicker exports. For example, if you wanted to post something in real time in social media. Just makes it much more accessible and faster to use. Together with the drone, I use the controller with the screen, the new updated with the extra range and just better connectivity. Overall, I love the controllers with the screen built in. They make it that much better, faster to set up. You can turn it on, unfold this, and you're ready to fly. No fiddling around with the phone, just makes it that much easier. It is going to be a little bit more pricey, but in my opinion, this is the much better way to fly with a drone. This setup is just a dream come true for many of us. With that being said, if you have any more questions about the DJI Mini 5 Pro, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, what are your thoughts about it? How do you see it? I personally was not expecting it to be this good. I thought it's gonna be much more of like a slight difference between the one that I have and the one that is here, but I do have to say that I was pleasantly surprised with the upgrade of the quality. Like, the imaging quality is the main feature here. I thought it's not gonna be much more, but actually that image looks that much better. With that being said, that is gonna be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.